recently, the 2017 draft class had a number of their fifth-year options picked up. Remember, first-round picks in each of the drafts, under contract for 4 years. Then you have the ability to pick up a fifth-year option for first-rounders only. As we take a look at the 2017 draft class, Myles Garrett, Browns' first overall pick, had his fifth-year option picked up. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So Trubisky to Corey Davis all had their fifth-year options declined. The Jets picked up the fifth-year option on the safety Jamal Adams. Mike Williams, wide receiver, had his picked up. Now, the guy that ends up being the steal of this top 10 is Christian McCaffrey. He gets a contract extension from the Panthers. They're building around him. Ross's is declined. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, who won the Super Bowl, had his picked up. An added note, so the Browns had 2 other first-rounders. Jabril Peppers had his fifth-year option picked up by the Giants, and the Browns also picked up David Njoku's. Interestingly, the last Browns player that had a fifth-year option picked up was back in 2013, and it was Phil Taylor, the defensive lineman. That's how long ago the Browns had a first-round pick that they thought was worthy of getting a second contract. Let's welcome back in Doug Lesmerises. And Doug, when you look at the troubles the Browns have had identifying and drafting talent, it's kind of easy to see why they've struggled so much. It's pretty damning of the draft process that, 2013 was the last first-rounder who had a fifth-year option picked up.
And the guys in between, like, most of them didn't even get to the point where a fifth-year option was a consideration. Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel gone each after 2 years. They weren't even in a fifth-year conversation. They were only here 2 years. Danny Shelton, 3 years here, traded. Cam Irving, Corey Coleman, each gone after 2 years. Like, it wasn't even like, by the time you got to this day in previous years, it's like, I wonder what the Browns are going to do. It's like they didn't even have a guy to consider. So, yeah, awful. And it does take a toll. Now, the other thing is, most of the time when we talk about the Browns in the draft, we're talking about things like this, about all the things they screwed up and other teams got right. That list of 2017, the full first round, 18 extensions picked up, 14 declined. And again, for instance, that number 12 spot that the Browns traded out of, a lot of people just think about the fact they could have taken Deshaun Watson there. Obviously, Deshaun Watson picked up by Houston, but the guy that Hugh Jackson that the Browns wanted at that spot instead, Malik Hooker, who wound up going a couple picks later to Indianapolis, the Ohio State safety, he was declined. So again, there is a lot of opportunity to screw this up. The Browns have just embraced those screw-up opportunities more than most teams. But if you think that everybody else always gets it right, no, that's not true. Just that the Browns have been awful at it, but now you start thinking about this, like you said, Peppers counts for the Browns because he was a first-round pick that went in the Odell trade. Without Jabril Peppers, Odell's not here. So they're 3 for 3 on that. Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward will have theirs picked up next year. I believe in Baker. And you can just see it is changing a little bit. But when you want to know why there's a hole in the roster, it's because Gilbert, Manziel, Shelton, Irving, Coleman, basically 0 for 5 in terms of long-term building blocks out of the first round.
Yeah, in the first round, you got to get guys that are you got to get guys that are at least going to be there. Not most of those guys you're picking in spots where you're going to get Pro Bowls, but as we said, they're not there. So it just gives you an idea of what Andrew Berry is facing. There's some challenges. Now, he does have the cap space and all that, but you got to construct things. I mean, if those are your frontline guys, imagine what below that looks like.
It's like, and I love roster building, right? I love cap space conversations. You know why the Browns have a ton of cap space? Because they don't have any good players worth signing. It's like, well, they'd have a lot less cap space if they were paying Justin Gilbert a boatload of money because he was a 5-year Pro Bowler. Like, that's how cap. It's like, how did we get the Justin Gilbert stunk? There's no way you have no one to spend money on. But, right, you have to stack. So that's the whole point of this, right? That they sort of messed up by accident. So then they reassessed, pulled back, said we're going to tank, and they tanked, no doubt about it. And now you start stacking them. But that's the whole point. It's not about one guy. It's not about Myles Garrett. It's about Myles Garrett and David Njoku and Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward and Jedrick. That's what good teams do. You don't have to go 100%, but you can't go, 0 for 5 in 4 drafts like the Browns did earlier. So it blows a hole in the middle of your roster. And the other thing is, too, you have to be smart about how you go about it. Joe Schobert's not here because he was a pick. He was so good. He's not a first rounder. But they didn't negotiate with him last year while he was on the roster. Andrew Berry said going forward, they'll do that with guys like Joe Schobert. He was so good they couldn't afford it. So that's the different thing. You're not going to be able to keep everybody, but you would much rather be in a spot where you have so many good players. You have to let a guy like Joe Schobert walk because he's too good and too expensive, rather than saying we have no one to spend money on.